So this is the Bagus V2 e-bike by FatBoy, and I've actually been using it for 6 months now and thought you might be interested to hear my thoughts on it. Now, full disclosure, FatBoy did send this bike to me, but I'm not obligated to say anything in particular. They aren't even watching this video before it goes live, and in actual fact, they encouraged me to be critical of the bike when necessary. So in other words, this is an honest, organic review. Now, I do want to quickly thank Insta360. They haven't sponsored this video, but I knew that I was going to struggle to get shots of me riding the bike with the equipment that I already owned. So I reached out to them and they were kind enough to send me their latest 360 camera, the X5. So anytime you see shots of me riding, that's how I captured them. So I'll leave a link to the X5 below in case you want to check it out yourself. All right, let's start with the unboxing experience. And let me tell you, it really is a two-person job to get this bike up and out of the box that it comes in. But then from there on out, you can do everything solo if you like. In terms of assembly, all you need to do is secure the handlebar system to the top of the bike. You also need to attach the pedals. And then from there, you can choose whether you want to attach these rear passenger foot pegs, this rear cargo rack, and this mini side mirror, all of which comes included with the bike. Now, we also picked up this child seat add-on. We also got this wooden seat and foot peg set because we have 3 kids and we wanted the ability to fit 3 kids on the bike with an adult, which we have done on multiple occasions. And this configuration with these accessories does work quite well, but I'll talk more about them in a moment. Now, I will say these rear passenger foot pegs that come with the bike, they are mounted slightly too low for younger kids. So for example, my 6-year-old's feet barely reach these. Doesn't mean kids can't sit here, it just means their feet will be kind of dangling a little bit. All right, let's move on to the things that I love about this bike. Firstly, just for some context, my wife and I only have 1 car between the two of us because I work from home. But over the past year or so, there have been a number of scenarios where having a second car would have been really handy. And this is only going to increase as our kids get older and start going to more and more activities and so forth. But having the Bagus bike pretty much eliminates that need completely. I cannot tell you the amount of times that the bike has come in so handy, just being able to zip up and get the kids from school or quickly ride to the gym, or basically any time where my wife or I have needed to go somewhere quickly, this thing has stepped up to the plate beautifully. And oftentimes we'll actually prefer to take the bike even if the car is available because it means we don't have to think about parking. As for the actual Bagus bike, I mean, this thing is built like a tank. The metal is really well put together. There's been no apparent flexing or creaking over the entire 6-month duration that we've been using this bike so far. The tires are also really thick and really well made. They're actually also puncture resistant. The suspension is fantastic, and that means that you can honestly ride over pretty much any surface or terrain with ease. And man, this seat right here is outrageously comfortable and makes long rides an absolute breeze. I do kind of wish that you could customize the color of it though, because at the moment it only comes in this one black color, which is a little plain for my liking. The motor is also incredibly powerful with a peak power capability of 1560 watts, which is honestly more than I'll ever need. But I also love that it's got both pedal assist and a dedicated throttle, offering some really nice flexibility depending on how you want to use the thing. There's also this little safety button on the right handle here, which allows you to completely disable the use of the throttle, which comes in clutch for making sure that you're not accidentally accelerating as you're getting on and off the bike, for example. But it does take some practice to actually remember to use it. So that's something to just keep in mind. Oh, and the battery lasts a really long time. It's a 52 volt, 20 amp hour battery. So in ideal conditions, it could in theory last you up to 100 kilometers on a full charge. But if you're riding at full throttle, then that range will more likely be around 40 to 50 Ks. And to be honest, that's not a distance that I can ever foresee myself riding personally. So I've never even gotten close to running the battery all the way down. But the beauty is, even if you are going to be taking the bike on a long trip, you can just pack the charger and you'll be able to charge it somewhere along the way. And hey, it's a bike at the end of the day, so if worst comes to the worst, you can just ride the thing manually if need be. The bike does come equipped with this front light, which makes for solid visibility at night, although I do still like using a headlamp for even better visibility for what that's worth. But then it also has this small rear brake light, which works well. And then this LCD display on the bike is also really bright, making it super easy to view even in really sunny and bright conditions. And even when I've got sunglasses on, I've never had an issue seeing the display, which is fantastic. Now, on top of the child seat and wooden seat and foot peg set, I also asked the team to send me one of their crate baskets, which I reckon is a must-have accessory if you're not using a child seat. They also sent me a phone holder, which is perfectly fine, but there's nothing particularly special about this one. You could easily grab another from Amazon, for example, and be very content with it. And they also sent me this folding lock, which I really love the convenience of, in that it lives on the bike and is very unobtrusive and compact. It also uses a combination system, meaning you don't have to worry about losing keys, for example. But I will say, if you're ever trying to secure the bike to something that isn't a bike rack, like a telegraph pole or a fence or something that hasn't been designed exclusively for connecting a bike to, then this type of lock can be a little tricky to use, and it does become a little bit of a Rubik's Cube type of situation trying to get it to actually lock. It does work, and it is super strong and rigid, so you don't have to worry about it getting cut or anything like that, but it does take some finagling to get the lock into position. As for the child seat, this is probably the best of the accessories that FatBoy sent over. It's built really well, it works really well, it's comfy, the kids never complain when they're sitting in it, so highly recommend it if you've got younger kids that you're wanting to take on the bike. This mirror, on the other hand, is fine, it does a job, but it is very plasticky and cheap feeling. And then regarding this Grom seat and this foot peg, honestly, not my favorite option for adding a third seat to the bike, because this seat ain't very comfy, and this foot peg, it's only attached via one screw, meaning it does have a tendency to get loose on its own. I actually went ahead and bought this really inexpensive leather bike seat attachment from Amazon. It's quite affordable, and it just attaches over the top using these two straps. It's not the best connection, I'll admit, but honestly, the kids have been really happy that they no longer have to sit on this quite uncomfortable plank of wood. And so then we come to the drawbacks of this bike, and there are really only 3 or 4 worth mentioning. The first is the size. As alluded to, this thing is a tank, and in fact, when it came in the box, it was actually much bigger than I was anticipating. Now, if you've got a huge garage or shed or whatever with a big entryway door, then this is honestly not much of an issue. In fact, the larger size of the bike does provide you with a nice level of confidence when riding on big roads and so forth, but we do not have a large garage or shed. We actually have a pretty small storage area out the back of my studio with a very standard sized doorway. And whilst the bike does fit through the door and it does fit in the storage area, it ain't easy getting it in, and it does take up quite a lot of room. It also doesn't fold up or anything, so there's really no way of fitting it into a car in case that's something you were thinking of doing. So if you are planning on taking this bike on long trips, then you will need to look into some sort of a tow bar solution. The second drawback is actually this thing here, not this wooden seat, the metal bar here. It's actually slightly higher than you'd expect it to be, and it makes getting on and off the bike a proper mission. Now, to be fair, I have gotten better at getting on and off the bike over the past 6 months that I've been using it, as you could imagine, but even to this day, with a kid sitting on that kid seat, let me tell you, it does require a lot of concentration. Now, honestly, I'm not really too sure if there is a solution to this problem if you want to be able to seat 3 kids on a bike. I mean, maybe they could have lowered this bar just to make it that little bit easier to get on and off, or maybe they could have come up with an alternate seating solution so that you can still have a step-through design. But either way, it does seem like this is kind of necessary if you want to fit 3 kids on a bike. I just wanted to let you know that getting on and off ain't as easy as you might have expected. Then we have the pedals that come with the bike. Out of the box, they have a bunch of these little prong things sticking out of them designed to give you better grip as you ride. But here's the thing, because of how small they are, they're essentially like little blades sticking out of the pedal. And that's fine if you never have any incidents with the bike, but if you do, like the pedal banging into the back of your leg or something, or if the bike falls over onto you, then these little prongs spell big trouble. And in actual fact, early on, both my wife and I had separate incidents where the pedals did bang into our legs and actually caused sizable gashes and quite a bit of blood. But then lo and behold, we realized that you can actually remove the prongs. And honestly, removing them was a proper game changer. We haven't had any issues since. We're no longer riding around in fear, worrying that our legs are gonna get cut and bruised by the pedals. And as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't made the pedals noticeably less grippy either, especially if you're a casual rider. So if you are planning on buying this bike or any bike from FatBoy, then my advice is, unless you're a pro rider and you need that extra grip, remove the prongs and your legs will thank me. But then finally, we have this thing, the kickstand. And for me, this is absolutely my least favorite part about this entire bike, because unlike the previous issues, there's no real justifiable reason for this design. For a bike so beefy and so big, it really needed a double-sided kickstand, or at the very least, a longer kickstand, because I mean, look at the absolute length of this thing. It's like one small push from completely falling over. And what makes matters worse is that you can't go and buy a third-party option either, because there's no center mounting plate. Trust me, I looked into it. you can't buy any sort of other kickstand, you're stuck with this one. Now, is it a deal breaker? Absolutely not, but it is really, really annoying. But that is it for pretty minor issues, one of which is completely fixable on your own, the other of which is necessary to fit 3 kids on the bike, and the third of which can actually be seen as a selling point. So then it's really only one issue, which is the kickstand, but that aside, I freaking love this bike. So much so that last month, I actually got another FatBoy bike, but this time not the Bagus, I picked up the Harlem. And let me tell you, if you don't have 3 kids like I do, then the Harlem is absolutely the bike to get. It's got that step-through design which makes getting on and off the bike so easy, and even though it's still got a one-sided kickstand, this one actually keeps the bike a little more upright so it doesn't feel quite as precarious as the one on the Bagus. Don't get me wrong, I still love the Bagus and I will continue to keep riding it a heck of a lot going forward, particularly anytime I need to fit 3 kids on the bike. But if you don't have 3 kids, like I said, my personal recommendation would be the Harlem. But there you have it. If you have any questions about either of the bikes, feel free to drop them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to hit you up with a response. But that's it. Thank you all very much for watching and I'll catch you later.